I now give the floor to the representative of Syrian Arab Republic.
Mr. President, I congratulate you and your team on managing the work of the Security Council for this month. I would also like to thank Mr. Geir Pedersen, the Special Envoy for Syria, and Mr. Tom Fletcher, the Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, for their briefings. I would also like to welcome and show appreciation to Ms. Majd Shorbaji, the civil society representative, for her valuable briefing, and for standing steadfast despite her bitter experience with the previous regime. This reminds us all of what we were liberated of. Allow me to reaffirm to her that the voice of the Syrian civil society will always be welcomed by this delegation, for this is the new Syria. I would also like to welcome your statements, which appear to me have unified the Council on this historic opportunity for Syria and the region, as well as the United Nations. And you have all mentioned hope. You've mentioned hope. And I would like to add, on behalf of the government, that we will add to hope action. Mr. President, less than a year ago, and before the fall of the regime, a young Syrian woman spoke before your august council from this seat, while my colleagues and I sat back there. She spoke against tyranny and oppression, bravely and consistently calling for freedom. She showed you a picture of one of the squares of the revolution from Syria. That square was the square of dignity in Suwaida, the square that continually called for freedom against oppression and tyranny. Today, and despite the wounds, these deep wounds and these unfortunate events that bloodied the hearts of Syrian men and women, Suwaida and its great people were and remain in the heart of every Syrian citizen, similar to all other Syrian governorates and every piece of our land, which was watered by the blood of Syrian men and women who fought for freedom and dignity. These painful events that took place in Suwaida were just as painful for the Syrian government as they were painful for the entire Syrian people. In this regard, allow me to express our deepest condolences to every Syrian family that lost a loved one during these tragic events. Therefore, the Syrian government made every possible effort to treat these wounds based on the concern of the Syrian government for the unity of the country. Therefore, we engaged in good faith and in a constructive manner in all the initiatives to resolve this crisis, which were culminated with the adoption of a roadmap to resolve the crisis in Suwaida and guarantee stability in the south of Syria, which was ratified during the tripartite meeting that was held in Damascus between the Syrian Arab Republic, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, and the United States of America. And yesterday, I met with my colleagues, the American ambassador and the permanent representative of the Kingdom of Jordan. I sent them a letter to adopt this roadmap as an official document with the Security Council and the United Nations. Mr. President, the first item on the roadmap was a call to the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the Syrian Arab Republic to investigate the latest events and the commitment of the Syrian government to hold accountable all the perpetrators of violations. And you all know that in this new Syria, we have worked on extending the mandate of the Commission, and we have cooperated with the Commission in a historic precedent. The Syrian government has already arrested a number of suspects accused of perpetrating violations from both the Ministry of Defense and Interior, and those were documented by a number of credible international media agencies. In this regard, we reaffirm that accountability should include all the perpetrators of violations without any exception or discrimination. The families of the victim should feel that justice was truly served. This roadmap aims to build trust gradually, strengthen national reconciliation, guarantee the delivery of humanitarian assistance, and restoring basic services, in addition to the reconstruction of damaged properties and villages. Furthermore, we will establish a local police force that includes all segments of the society in the governorate. We will strengthen an inclusive national rhetoric that celebrates diversity and rejects hate speech and extremism. It will also strengthen equality before the law and other items that represent an important step towards restoring stability in the south and strengthening the unity of the Syrian land and the Syrian people. Mr. President, Syria today is moving forward towards recovery and reconstruction. It is overcoming one phase after the other, following the liberation of the country from oppression, and after we've preserved state institutions, we filled the presidential void, we started a national dialogue. We have formed a diverse government based on competencies. And today, we continue our efforts to hold elections in line with the specificity of the interim phase and the post-conflict challenges in order to fill the legislative gap. And these elections, Mr. President, will be the first of their kind for decades. They will be based on a separation of powers. In this regard, we welcome the agreements between the High Electoral Commission and a number of civil society organizations. The government has decided that these elections will be a genuine opportunity for all Syrian men and women to participate in drafting the future of the country. The decrees regulating the elections will emphasize the representation of all Syrians and guarantee the participation of the most vulnerable categories. Women will be represented by a percentage of no less of 20% in the list of candidates. We have also paved the way for a judicial and media supervision. We have also called on international organizations and diplomatic missions to observe the electoral process. Syria believes that these elections, despite difficulties, despite challenges, will be a first step towards strengthening civil peace and building the institutions that represent Syrian men and women truly and embody their aspirations. Not only will the Syrian government take these political steps, it will also make great efforts to advance the economic situation. We have signed a number of agreements with friendly and sisterly countries. We have also signed memorandums of understanding with a number of international and global companies. Furthermore, the Syrians around the world are working together, organizing generous community campaigns to support recovery efforts after years of oppression and suffering. Colleagues, Syria condemns in the strongest terms the Israeli attacks and once again calls on the Security Council to take immediate action to condemn these attacks and prevent their reoccurrence, and to compel the Israeli occupation authorities to withdraw their forces from the Syrian territory, where they have expanded their operations over the past few months, to end their occupation of the Syrian Golan, pursuant to relevant UN resolutions, notably resolutions 242, 383, and 497. Mr. President, efforts expected from the international community to achieve a quantum leap at the humanitarian and developmental levels are still below expectations. A lot of Syrian men and women, as we have heard before, are suffering from a severe lack of basic services. They're also suffering from the challenges resulting from the dangerous and catastrophic impact of climate change and the worst drought wave in 3 decades. This wave has deprived the Syrian people from their basic needs in terms of water, and they are genuinely threatening our agricultural production and food security. Not to mention the pollution resulting from explosive remnants of war and the mines that are now an obstacle before the return of the refugees, IDPs, and the recovery of agricultural land. Despite the success stories that I have mentioned and that you have mentioned yourselves, overcoming these challenges requires mobilizing international efforts and strengthening a positive international engagement that supports Syria and the Syrian people, supporting programs to recover vital sectors, strengthening humanitarian and development programs, and honoring declared pledges to fund the humanitarian response plan. In this regard, allow me to express our thanks to the member states in the Security Council for the facilities they have presented to guarantee the participation of the Syrian delegation in this historic moment to participate in the work of the high-level week of the 80th session of the UN General Assembly. The Syrian government reaffirms its commitment to continue to cooperate and continue its partnership with the United Nations and its specialized agencies, and we call on the United Nations to strengthen their efforts to support the Syrian people during this critical phase of our history. In conclusion, Mr. President, Damascus, which has always been the heart of Syria and the symbol for its unity, will continue to bring together all Syrian men and women and will open its arms to them, regardless of their background and their religious affiliation. Their diversity is a source of strength and wealth. It proves that Syria was and continues to be strong despite all attempts at division. The Syrian people has a joint history and a great legacy, and they stand today united, looking towards the future, rejecting terrorism, hate speech, and extremism, turning the page on suffering and pain, determined to build a nation for all its people without exception and without exclusion or marginalization, a nation that is united, strong in its diversity, persistent in its sovereignty, free in its decision, and moving forward based on the will of its people towards a bright future created by the Syrian people together, men and women, young men and women. Thank you, Mr. President.